Hi everyone, welcome to Birky's Booktime. Archie's very excited. Do you know why? Not because he's really looking forward to the next chapter of Cogheart, but because it's Easter Sunday and I have his favourite, not chocolate, an Easter sausage. Archie loves these, they're his favourite treats. So, because it's Easter, he's having one of his favourite treats while we read chapter 5 of Cogheart. I hope you've all got lots of lovely Easter eggs, but don't eat them all at once. Okay, shout out today goes to Martha and Sophia, 2 girls in my class, and lovely girls who've been enjoying Birky's book time, and I hope, girls, that you enjoy chapter 5. We're going to find out a little bit more about Lily and her journey. They'd not been travelling long when a knock at the corridor window made Lily glance up from her penny dreadful. It was the thin fellow in the mirrored spectacles from the air station platform, with a copy of The Daily Cog clasped under his arm. When he slid open the door and peered in, Lily gave a loud gasp, for the mirrors were not glasses as she'd supposed, but lenses, sewn into the raw red sockets of his eyes. The man had no eyeballs! He stared at the ticket in his black-gloved hand, then examined the brass numbers above the seats, his mirrors reflecting everything. "Excuse me, Archibald." "Shh." "Excuse me, madam, miss, I appear to be allocated this cabin. May I come in?" Lily shook her head, but Madame Verdigris replied, "Certainly." "Thank you, much obliged." The thin man settled himself in a spare seat and leaned his walking cane against the wall. Lily noticed its silver skull handle. He took his hat off and his gloves and placed them on his lap. "Sorry for the disturbance, ladies." "Please, pay no mind to it." Madame Verdigris returned to her embroidery, absently poking her needle through the eye of an appliqued cherub. The thin man unfolded his newspaper and smoothed the wrinkles from it. He opened it to arm's length and began to read the inside pages. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I can see Archibald looking at me. "You can't have another, you can have one later. You can have one later. Lie down and listen to the story. Good boy. Come on then, good boy." Lily could not stop staring at his face. Perhaps he'd been in an accident, for the rims of his eye sockets around the mirrors looked... They do say never work with children and animals, and I work with both. Okay, good boy, Archie, good boy. Lily could not stop staring at his face. Perhaps he'd been in an accident, for the rims of his eye sockets around the mirrors looked red with damage, and his cheeks were scarred with jagged marks. She decided he must be a hybrid, part human, part machine. She'd never seen one before, until now. She'd never even been sure that they existed. Underneath her revulsion, she felt a little sorry for the man. It must be a difficult life to be singled out as to be different like that. She was probably looking too much. She turned her attention to the paper instead. It was the evening edition. Lily scanned the front page and gave a gasp. The lead article was about Papa's disappearance. She read the first 2 paragraphs. The Daily Cog. "Professor Hartman missing, presumed dead." John Hartman, co-inventor of the modern mechanical and infamous recluse, was travelling on board his private airship Dragonfly yesterday when she disappeared. The ship failed to land at its stated destination of Brackenbridge Air Station and is thought to have combusted in a mid-air explosion. Authorities are currently searching the crash site in order to retrieve as much information as possible. Prominent in the field of mechanical design, Professor Hartman co-owned the country's largest mechanical manufacturing business with his friend and colleague, Professor Silverfish. But he forfeited his share of the business and vanished from public life 7 years ago, when his wife was killed in a steam wagon crash. He leaves one surviving relative, a daughter, Lily, aged 13, whose current whereabouts are unknown. Our reporter, Anna Quinn, has attempted to contact the family. A lump welled in Lily's throat, and she stopped reading. It was all true then, written there in black and white. She glanced at the thin man. His head lolled against the headrest, his chin tipped back. Was he watching her, or was he sleeping? So hard to tell behind those lidless mirrored eyes. She gave a cough, but he didn't move. Perhaps he really was asleep. He wasn't reading the paper anymore. It drooped now in his hands. She stuck her tongue out at him, and he flashed her a smile sharp as a shark's. "I must apologise again," he said, folding the Daily Cog and setting it aside. "I know how frustrating a stranger in one's cabin can be on long journeys." Lily gave a timid nod, which he seemed to take as an invitation to continue. "Odd they put us together when the Zepp's so empty. Must be a mechanical error." Madame Verdigris set aside her embroidery. "Was it the same mechanical potter who showed you aboard? I find these primitive mechanicals with their synthesized emotions most disagreeable, don't you? They make so many clerical mistakes, and with the back talk they give you and all the winding. Oh, I'm often surprised they function at all." "Quite true, madame. You've hit the nail squarely on the head there." The thin man smiled. "Or should I say, got to the heart of the matter." Madame Verdigris gave her tinkling cut-glass laugh, though Lily saw nothing funny about either of their remarks. It occurred to her that the thin man had twice addressed the housekeeper as Madame, not Madam, and she wondered how he knew the woman's preferred title. The thin man leaned forward, his silver eyes flashing in the light. "Ladies, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mr. Roach." Madame Verdigris nodded to him. "Bonsoir, Mr. Roach. I'm Madame Verdigris, and this is my charge, Miss Hartman." "Ah, like the article?" Mr. Roach asked, tapping the newspaper. Madame Verdigris sombrely inclined her head in the affirmative. Lily ground her teeth. Hadn't the housekeeper just told her not to let people know who she was? "You look so upset, young lady," Mr. Roach said, "and no wonder." "I'm fine," she said. "I've something here that might cheer you up." Mr. Roach put a hand in his pocket and pulled out a paper bag, which he held out to Lily. She peered inside. Striped gooey sweets were fused to the paper. They must have been in his pocket for weeks. "No, thank you, sir." "Go on. They're humbugs." He thrust the paper bag at her, but she shook her head. "What's the matter? Don't you like humbugs?" "Oh, if I wasn't such a mild-mannered fellow, I might be offended. Perhaps you think I'd be better off eating carrots. Good for the old eyesight." He laughed and tapped the centre of one mirrored eye with a finger. Lily felt a shiver raise up her back. "No," she said, "it's not that, only—" She studied his unreadable expression. She didn't even know how to put it politely, but she needn't have worried. Madame Verdigris stepped in on her behalf. "I'm afraid, sir, one rule of Miss Scrimshaw's Academy, where Miss Hartman is a pupil, is never to accept sweets from strangers." "Sorry," Lily added. Mr. Roach frowned, the silver orbs of his eyes narrowing. He clutched the paper bag in a gaunt hand. "You could hardly call me a stranger, Miss Hartman. We've just introduced ourselves. I must say, I don't believe your rules apply in these circumstances. And one should never be without a humbug when one takes a long journey. I find they help with travel sickness on these commuter Zeps." Lily relented and took one, and Mr. Roach gave a small, victorious grin. The humbug tasted delicious, but after a while her eyelids drooped and she felt rather tired. She put her head against the frosty window, which thrummed and rattled with the Zeppelin's engines, and watched her breath cloud the glass. Before she drifted off, she heard Madame Verdigris say, "I don't know why these Zeps are always so loud. They are always so loud. Where is the refinement one gets with an old-fashioned horse and carriage or hot air balloon?" "Change is always monstrous at first," Mr. Roach replied, "but people soon get used to it. You know, I've the strongest feeling, Madame Hortense. There will be a lot of changes in your life these coming months, for the better or worse, depending on how you play your hand. I'll be watching closely to see how you handle things." Lily tried to fathom the meaning of his words, but found them slippery and ungraspable, and they swam away from her like a shoal of silverfish pulling her along into a fog of sleep. When she came to, the Zepp was approaching a local air station and Mr. Roach was gone. She suddenly remembered he'd been far too familiar with Madame, his last words tinged with a threat of some kind. "What happened to the fellow sitting opposite?" Lily asked, stifling a yawn. "He left a few minutes ago to prepare for landing," Madame said. "He had an urgent appointment and wanted to disembark first." "But how did he know your first name?" "Pardon?" Madame seemed somewhat flustered. She tucked her needle into the edge of her embroidery and Lily noticed she'd filled in the cherub's eyes with circles of silver thread. "I heard him use your first name," Lily repeated, "and he knew you were called Madame before you even gave your title." "Oh, what an odd thing to say!" The housekeeper let out a peal of laughter. You must have dreamed it." She gathered her spools of thread and tucked them into her bag next to her needlework. "You were asleep for so long, Lily. In fact, you've tousled your hair. Perhaps you'd better tidy yourself before we arrive." Lily was tempted to pursue the subject further, but the airship had begun its descent towards the landing site, and soon the familiar shabby sign of Brackenbridge Air Station appeared, lighting up the cabin. She struggled into her coat and scarf, and a few minutes later they disembarked onto the tiny local platform. A cold wind buffeted them as they descended the gangplank and took the wooden steps towards ground level. Papa's mechanical driver, Captain Springer, was waiting to collect them at the entrance to the station, standing beside their steam wagon. Lily recognised him at once from his bow legs and bent stance. As soon as Madame Verdigris had wound him up, he hobbled over and gave Lily a big, creaky hug. "By all the ticks!" he cried. "It's good to see you, Lily." Then he huffed and puffed on his wooden legs, his cogs clicking as he loaded her case into the cab and helped Madame to her seat. Climbing in after them, Lily glanced back at the other departing passengers, all wrapped up against the cold. She searched amongst the faces for Mr. Roach, but couldn't find him anywhere. He seemed to have melted into the night. And there's where we're going to stop. I'll read the rest of chapter 5 later in another instalment. So it's Easter Sunday. I hope that you're all enjoying the sunshine and eating lots of chocolate. But remember, don't eat it all at once. You need to save some for the rest of the week. Okay, we're going to say goodbye now. Archibald might have another little treat. Archibald, do you want another sausage? Archie, do you want another Easter sausage? I think that's yes. Okay, guys. See you soon. Bye.